Hey there, it's Flora here from makingcardsisdone.com, and today I'm part of Heffy Doodle's first ever blog hop in honor of their launch. So if you haven't heard about Heffy Doodle just yet, then that's because they're a brand new company, and you can support them on their Kickstarter page to help them support their new company. So check out my blog post for more information on that. In this video, I am featuring their Happy Snappy Crocs stamp and die cut set to make an ombre sequin shaker with distress inks. So let's get started. First, I'm going to use my mini MISTI tool to stamp some of the images of the Happy Snappy Crocs stamp set onto some ultra heavyweight cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. And I'll be picking out some of the images, and here I actually stamped a bunch more images than I'm actually going to be using on the finished cards. But I'm just going to ink these up with Memento Tuxedo Black ink, since that's my favorite ink to use with Copic markers, since it doesn't bleed or smear or smudge. So after inking or after stamping those images, it's time to color them. I'm coloring this crocodile and all of my other images with Copic markers. So for the crocodile, I'm using YG23 first to add my first base of color in order to get all the colors moving. Then I'm going to use YG67 to add my first layer of shading. And then I am blending that out with my mid-tone, which is YG17. In this video, I kind of switched up my Copic coloring technique, since I usually start out with the darkest color, then move on to the mid-tone, and then I finally use the lightest color to blend everything out. But since this image is quite large, I decided to add my lightest color first, just to have a really nice base and to get all of those other colors moving. I actually had to color this image like 4 times before filming it, because it was just a little bit harder for me. I'm not exactly that good with the Copic markers. I actually prefer the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, since they're just a little bit more forgiving, and you can also, well, for me it's easier to blend those markers since you're working with water and not with an alcohol marker. Of course, that's just my personal preference, and maybe if I'll be playing more with the Copic markers, I'll actually prefer these. So I will definitely keep you posted on that. So then I'm coloring this piece of pie. I'm using R29 and R24 for the strawberry, and then I'm using YG17 for the green details, and then I decided to color some pink icing on this cake, and I'm using RV13 and RV11 for that. So it's a nice strawberry shortcake, and so I'm just blending that out, and then I'm using E27 and E55 for the filling of this cake. So I'm using some chocolate filling over here. So here I also started out with my lightest color, and then I moved on to my darkest color, since I just wanted to switch up my coloring technique a little bit and play around and just see what works best for me. So let me know in the comments below which Copic coloring technique you prefer, and maybe it will do the trick for me. So I'm also coloring this other tiny cupcake with RV14 and RV13. So yeah, that's it. And then for the little cupcake wrapper, I am using YG23 and YG17, since that green matches the crocodile. So what I like about these sets is that they come with coordinating dies, so there are coordinating dies available for purchase, so it's just easy to cut out your images. Next, it's time to create the ombre paper for this shaker. I am using distress inks for that. So first I used squeezed lemonade to add some yellow to add my first base. Then I'm using mustard seed for my second layer. And then I'm just kind of blending that away. And I'm actually using watercolor paper since that just helps me blend the colors more easily. So I'm just always going back in with the squeezed lemonade to blend everything out. And then finally, I am using my darkest color. I can't really recall the name right now. I think it's something with amber, I'm not sure. I actually linked to this distress ink pad in my supply list below, so check that out. So as I mentioned before, I always go back in with the previous color. So when I added that darkest color, I went back in with mustard seed, and then I went back in with squeezed lemonade just to blend everything together really nicely and to create a nice ombre effect. I also wanted to add some white splatters, some water splatters, so I sprayed that water into my hand, and then I just flicked that water onto that distress ink, and that will react to the water and it will create some really nice splatters. I'm just picking up those puddles of water with a tissue just to make sure that it dries really nice. And I just remember the name of that distress ink. It's actually called Fossilized Amber, so I just had to think a while. Okay, so I created this frame for my sequin shaker using Lawn Fawn's stitched rectangles die cuts, and then I adhered a piece of acetate behind that, and then I'm going to create my frame of foam to get my sequins moving in my shaker. So I'm adhering those strips of foam with Tombow Mono Multi-Glue. You could also use some double-sided foam adhesive if you would like to, or you can use the fuse tool to create a sequin shaker. It's been a while since I made a shaker with foam and acetate, so I thought I'd give it another go. Then it's time to stamp my sentiment onto my piece of my distressed ombre paper. So I'm using the Heffy Doodle stamp set for that, and I actually had to re-ink that stamp 2 times or twice because I'm stamping this onto some watercolor paper, and watercolor paper has a little bit of texture to it, so sometimes it's a little bit harder to stamp onto that paper. Then I'm going to fill up my sequin shaker with some gorgeous sequins from the Ton. This is a beautiful mix. I think it's called the Belle's Dress Couture mix. And then I'm adding a little bit more yellow and a couple of extra gold sequins here and there. And then it's time to close up my sequin shaker. So I adhered this piece to a note card with my ATG, and then I'm using my Tombow Mono Multi-Glue to adhere my frame for my sequins. So I'm just pressing that down a little bit, making sure it doesn't slide around, and then it's time to assemble everything together. So I'm adhering my crocodile with my Tombow Mono Multi-Glue. Just going to use my tweezers a little bit to position that. And then I'm also going to adhere the cake, so the piece of cake and the little cupcake. Again, using that Tombow Mono Multi-Glue, and I'm just making sure that this dries flat since the acetate kind of slides, so you don't want your images to slide all the way down. And then I'm also adhering some googly eyes to my crocodile with glossy accents. And then finally, I'm adding some shimmer to these images with my clear wing of Stella glitter pen. I'm also going to add a coat of glossy accents for some more dimension and some more shine. So that finishes up my card for this video. Make sure to visit my blog for more information on Heffy Doodle's blog hub and the giveaway. So thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.